So great to see so many people here in our embassy. I think we can already start our formal part. I would like to extend our most warm welcome to the honorable members of Congress, dear Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. I'm delighted to welcome you all here today at Lithuanian Embassy for the official launch of the Congressional Belarus Caucus, the event we're organizing together with the Atlantic Council. A year ago, Lukashenko stole the presidential elections of Belarus. With unthinkable oppression, persecutions, and violence, his regime tried to silence those who clearly and peacefully expressed a firm wish for change. But even with more than 500 political prisoners, 1,000 tortured, and 10,000 detained, the regime could not and will not break the will and spirit of Belarus people. And Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, who is today with us here, the legitimate leader of Belarus, is the backbone of this will and spirit of Belarus people. Dear Svetlana, we admire your dedication, courage, and sense of responsibility. When Belarusians and all people of goodwill from all over the world looks at you, they see hope. You give them strength to pursue and fight for the better future, for the future really chosen by the people and for the people. And I'm very proud of my country, Lithuania, its government and the people who immediately extended the hand of solidarity and support. Thank you very much. So Vilnius gave refuge and became home for the hundreds of human rights fighters, journalists, civil society activists, and businessmen. Lithuania provided platform from Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and her team to act. A plea for the values of freedom and human rights will always find a place in our hearts, and our commitment to this cause will remain unchanged. But if we want to have a real change and to ensure that democracy, respect for human rights and freedoms prevails, we have to act jointly and together. And I'm very glad and proud that the European Union, US, and all like-minded countries acted from the very beginning together in imposing sanctions against the regime and supporting the civil society of Belarus. But today's visit of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya to the United States is of special significance. The whole free world looks up and counts on American leadership. We cannot underestimate how valuable is the US support in this struggle. And fundamental step in this regard is the decision by the bipartisan group of the US House of Representatives to form the Friends of Belarus Caucus. The caucus sends strong message that the US will remain committed, active, and engaged until Lukashenko's regime finally falls and faces responsibility of its crimes and abuses. It assures the people everywhere in the world that the US will stand with them until an inevitable trump of freedom and democracy. So I would like to extend sincere thanks for the members of the caucus for your support and strong stand for the Belarus freedom. And without any ado, I would like to invite representatives, members of the caucuses, to say a few words. So I invite Representative Bill Keaton, Representative Smith, Representative Mercy Kaptur, Representative Wilson, to take the floor, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Ambassador. We're also joined by Representative Tom Malinowski, who's co-chair of the Kleptocracy Caucus and a member of our committee. Good evening, and I just want to first thank you, Ambassador, and the Embassy of Lithuania and the Atlantic Council for hosting this event to celebrate the launch of the Congressional Friends of the Belarus Caucus. I want to welcome Svetlana, who's been very active and busy in a very successful trip to the U.S., and her team to Washington, as well as Ambassador Fisher. Where's Ambassador Fisher? And other members of Congress and distinguished guests here today, showing their support for the democratic movement in Belarus by being here and attending this important event. The launch of this caucus could not come at a more crucial time. Just last week, Lukashenko further intensified the crackdown on Belarusian civil society by detaining students, NGO employees, journalists, some who work for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and even members of the Coordination Council, which is led by Ms. Tsikhanouskaya. Thank you for, on behalf of everyone else, if you can tell the members of the Coordination Council how proud we are of their efforts. This evening, we gather and launch the caucus. It represents an important step for the United States Congress to demonstrate its support for a free and democratic Belarus. I, along with Representatives Kaptur, Smith, and Wilson, are thrilled to be heading this initiative. We're so grateful that Ms. Tsikhanouskaya and her team could meet us here in Washington. Friends of the Belarus Caucus will serve as a new platform for promoting democracy in Belarus and build upon the work already done in Congress to support the Belarusian people. This includes $30 million in funding for Belarus and the passing of the bipartisan Belarus Democracy, Human Rights, and Sovereignty Act. This occurs along with calling for new, free, and fair elections in Belarus. The caucus will work to pressure and raise the costs on the illegitimate Lukashenko regime, further allocate assistance to civil society in Belarus, and stand in solidarity with Belarusian freedom fighters and journalists who have risked everything and more for the freedom of their country. Furthermore, it's important to highlight the many women who have led the charge in fight for democracy in Belarus. This includes Maria Kolenskova, Veronica Sepkala, and so many other women who've taken the streets, showing courage and leadership in that country. It is truly a women-inspired movement, something we can be proud of in holding democratic values high. Just last week, Belarusian activists organized the Day of Solidarity with Belarusian Women, which resulted in rallies and statements from around the world and an inspiring demonstration of support for democracy in Belarus. I also want to commend the European Union. Many of the country's ambassadors are here tonight in attendance. Their support has shown tremendous solidarity in the democratic movement in Belarus and the swift and decisive action they took following the forcing down of Ryanair flight and the subsequent arrest of Ryan Protasevich and his partner. This type of collective and multinational action sends a statement to authoritarian regimes around the world that political repression and attacks on peaceful protesters and journalists will not be tolerated. Finally, as we gather here tonight, the movement in Belarus continues, including peaceful protesters who spontaneously gather to express their discontent, and the Belarusian diaspora that continues to reinforce the movement and rally support outside of the country. All of us committed to keeping the fight for democracy in Belarus alive. As Americans, as members of Congress, I believe we have a responsibility to support any people who seek democracy for their country. And I'm impressed by the leadership shown by Mrs. Tsikhanouskaya and her team, and I'm proud to support the efforts of the democratic movement in Belarus by joining my colleagues here this evening in launching this historic caucus. Thank you all for being here.
And Chairman Keating, thank you for your great leadership. And Madam Ambassador, thank you in Lithuania for what you have done. You are an oasis of freedom, not just for Svetlana, but for so many others who have made it across the border to Lithuania. Very courageous, and we're all so very, very grateful for that leadership. It's extraordinary. Nearly a year ago, as you all know, the world witnessed tens of thousands of Belarusians, demonstrators, in some cases well over 100,000, take to the streets in Minsk and other cities to protest an egregiously flawed election and the ongoing brutality of Alexander Lukashenko's dictatorship. No one epitomizes the goodness and character of the Belarusian people than Svetlana, the smart, resourceful, tenacious, and extraordinarily heroic woman who almost assuredly won the August 2020 presidential election. Today, Lukashenko remains in power, not by the consent of the governed, but by the extreme violence and by propaganda and by Putin. Lukashenko continues to hold 1,000 democracy activists in his infamous prisons. Lukashenko's bullies continue to beat, hunt down, and harass peaceful protesters, including journalists. Yesterday, the AP reported the arrest of 3 more journalists. It was pointed out that last week, the Radio Free Europe, their journalists were arrested and their work closed down. One 26-year-old journalist was sentenced to 8 years, and here's what he said. They threatened me, beat, and tortured me with electric current. They forced me to write a confessional testimony. The Belarusian people of all ages and backgrounds want Lukashenko out. They want a robust democracy, and they deserve it. They want freedom and universally recognized human rights. And they want the crackdown to end and political prisoners freed, including your husband. In the past, the United States and European nations were tough after each and every Lukashenko election fraud. And I say this as a warning, only to ease up over time. My advice would be, and my strong admonishment, not this time. Too much is at stake. There can't be any more democracy fatigue by the United States or by Europe. As prime author of the original Belarus Democracy Act of 2004, 2006, 2011, and joining with my good friend Mr. Keating and some members of our committee, we did the 2020 Act, all of which passed the House and Senate and signed into law. I can say emphatically, we must resolve to be unequivocal for Belarusian freedom and democracy. No more backsliding, turning that page months, even a couple of years after things pass and say, well, maybe we can work with the guy. You can't. He's a horrible dictator and needs to be imprisoned. Svetlana is in Washington, D.C., a very successful trip, to ask that Americans continue to rally behind her people and their just cause. She asked that the U.S. government use all diplomatic means to end Lukashenko's reign of terror. Yesterday, she said the Biden administration must take active and non-symbolic measures, including significantly ramping up sanctions, including sectoral sanctions, against the dictatorship, and use all diplomatic means necessary to end his reign of terror. We now, this meeting, this caucus, her historic visit, needs to be the beginning of a pivot to make sure that Lukashenko never again rules with such an iron fist. You'll bet.
I feel so very, very privileged on behalf of the people of Ohio who send me here to join this august group of freedom lovers. Thank you all. Thank you, Ambassador, so very much for letting us share Freedom's home here at the Lithuanian Embassy in Washington, in our home of living. And I'm very honored to join my own colleagues, Congressman Keating, Congressman Smith, Congressman Wilson, and Congressman Malinowski. All of us have a little gray hair from what I can see, and we're old enough to remember, at least I am, what it was like to live in a world with a Berlin Wall. And in 1989, the world shifted. And frankly, I wasn't sure I would ever live to see that. And now to be given the privilege in our lifetimes of helping to extend freedom's umbrella to places that have endured so much repression and harm. And so as co-chair of this newly founded bipartisan Friends of Belarus caucus, I want to extend warmest greetings to not just the ambassador, but obviously to Svetlana, who is such a woman of courage. Such a woman of courage. We sometimes meet the face of freedom, and you can see it in the individual's eyes, because they can see the future. And they carry with them the hope of millions of people. And so we bow to you, Svetlana, for your life. I want to thank the Atlantic Council. I see where Ambassador John Herbst has joined us. Thank you for your lifetime of giving to the cause of liberty, Mr. Ambassador. Thank you for joining us. And obviously the colleagues from the Congress that are here with me tonight are giving of their lives and their passion to this cause tonight, as we extend a warm welcome also to our ambassador to Belarus, Julie Fisher, and obviously the leader of freedom in Belarus, Svetlana. Svetlana has been an inspiration to people everywhere. But for those of us in our country, we call them sheroes, not just heroes, but women, strong women, who have looked tyranny in the face and smiled, and done it with such dignity. Since the sham Belarusian presidential elections in 2020, our Congress has done its part to support the Belarusian people's aspirations to choose their own future. Alexander Lukashenko has lost all legitimacy as president and now relies on oppression and brutal tyranny to maintain his power. In response, I am so pleased to work with my colleagues here tonight to swiftly pass the Belarusian Democracy Act, which strongly condemns the regime's human rights abuses and calls for robust sanctions on malign actors in the region. Additionally, the legislation calls for an increase in assistance for civil society organizations. And I would call upon all Americans and all organizations here tonight to redouble and triple your efforts to link to organizations in Belarus. As a senior member of the House Appropriations Committee, I am pleased to report the committee has approved $30 million to support liberty in Belarus, which is a significant increase from the administration's request of $15 million. And this bill will be brought up soon in the House of Representatives and the House of Senators. I have to acknowledge Congresswoman Barbara Lee of Oakland, California, who made this possible. Please thank her. I thank my colleagues also for joining me in publishing the largest open transatlantic letter in recent memory, perhaps in history, which called for more robust punitive sanctions against Lukashenko with lawmakers from over 30 countries. This letter demonstrated robust transatlantic solidarity with the Belarusian people, on whose borders stand soldiers, not just from Belarus, but from Russia. Finally, I wish to strongly condemn the Belarusian authorities' recent raid on Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty in Minsk, and I call for the immediate release of Ihar Losik, Alex Dashinsky, Alla Prudzelovich, and Ina Studzinskaya, as well as all journalists and prisoners of conscience. With the formal launch of this caucus, and I want to thank both Bill Keating and Chris Smith for their leadership, and also Mr. Wilson and Mr. Malinowski. And I look forward to working with my colleagues on a bipartisan basis to continue our fight with Svetlana and her colleagues for liberty in Belarus and adjoining countries. And I want to thank the Baltic nations for showing such solidarity and welcome to U.S. troops through NATO who circle through your country, and we stand behind them with you. God bless you all. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Joe Wilson, a member of Congress from South Carolina. And really, hey, it's a dream come true to be here with you. And I'm so grateful to be here with the ambassador. We were together last night at the EU caucus. While we were there was great solidarity expressed over and over again for the people of Belarus. And so Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, just want to wish you well on the courage that you have and our love and affection for your husband and for the people of Belarus. And for me, it's a dream come true. And I echo Congresswoman Kaptur, and that is that I was in college and I one time saw the legation of Lithuania. And I thought, gosh, what is this? Back in the 1960s. And it was the hope that one day Lithuania would be free. The prospects were really not very good. In fact, it was perceived to be the way of the future that it not exist. But yet, I'm so proud of America that we never, due to the Wells Agreement doctrine, we never recognized the Soviet occupation of Latvia, Lithuania, or Estonia. And now, free countries. And it's particularly meaningful to me because I've just gotten back as a member of the Helsinki Commission, ranking member of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe Parliamentary Assembly. While I was there, we were in Vienna, meeting with government officials, civic leaders. We were in Tallinn, Estonia, again meeting with the Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, everywhere we went. And then we concluded our meetings in Sofia, Bulgaria, with the President and other officials. Everywhere we went, people were so hopeful for the future of Belarus. In fact, the Parliamentary Assembly had a vote, and it was an urgent resolution, and it was to approach the dissent in Belarus. It was a resolution by Ms. Farah Karimi of the Netherlands, and a majority of the 57 countries of the organization made this vote, regretting the current situation as of mid-June 2021 of suppression of dissent in Belarus, concerned about the undermining of the right of peaceful assembly and freedom of the media of the country. The Parliamentary Assembly voted to urge parliamentarians and authorities in Belarus to reconsider the restrictions on all peaceful mass protest and freedom of the media. It calls on the Belarusian authorities to ensure that the country's legislation is in full compliance with international human rights commitments. And finally, it calls on the Belarusian authorities to rethink their general approach to dissent in their country and their repressive tactics, release of all political prisoners, engage with the opposition, and allow the holding of free and fair elections with observers from the OSCE. And again, can you imagine to get a majority of 57 countries, what a sign of respect that is for the people of Belarus. God bless the people of Belarus.
Thank you very much. So I would like to extend on behalf of everyone, members of the caucus, for your support and for creating such important step in creating this group, which will be lasting achievement. And so Svetlana's will be also a very important step for the whole Belarusian people and also for the whole freedom fighters worldwide. Now I would like to give the floor to the U.S. Ambassador to Belarus. Excellency Julia Fisher. I think she doesn't need big introduction.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Plevitya, Representative Keating and Wilson and Smith, Mr. Malinowski, Ms. Kaptur, it is such an honor to join you. Ambassador Rieker is here from the Bureau of European Affairs as well. I don't want to stand 1 minute between you and the opportunity to hear from Madam Tsikhanouskaya. It has been an absolute honor for me this week to be a part of her meetings, to be a part of these discussions. Let me just tell you that from my perspective, my decades of service as a diplomat, I have seen no other issue unite Washington in such a way to bring together this level of support that this caucus represents, more so than the cause of freedom in Belarus. So it truly is, it is an honor for me to be a part of this. It is a tremendous day for our relationship with Belarus to be launching such a caucus. I thank you very much for your leadership. And I thank you, Madam Tsikhanouskaya, really for making this trip and bringing us all together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Fisher, and also would like to thank, using this opportunity, Ambassador Rika and Representative Malinowski for being with us. But now overdue, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, who is legitimate leader of Belarus, which also won not only the votes of Belarus people, but also hearts and minds of everybody in Belarus and all the people who work together. Please, you have the floor.
Dear friends of free and democratic Belarus, it's my honor to address you all on such a groundbreaking occasion, the launch of the first caucus on Belarus in the United States Congress. I would like to thank the Embassy of Lithuania and Ambassador Audra Pilipytė for hosting this event, and the Atlantic Council for supporting it. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Representatives Marcy Kapture, Bill Keaton, Chris Smith, and Joe Wilson for this decision. And I welcome all other congressmen presenting here. A special thanks to Julia Fisher, U.S. Ambassador, who bravely stands with us in this challenging fight. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Belarus diaspora for your tireless campaign and commitment to the Belarusian cause. I think almost everyone at this event contributed to Belarus democratic movement, and I feel like I'm among friends today. I want to tell you something personal, something that I have felt here in Washington, D.C. No matter either you are Republican or Democrat, congressman or State Department official, foreign diplomat or journalist at popular TV show, you always stand for values. You always stay united when it comes to freedom and democracy. You stay united and stand up for other nations. It truly reflects the name of your country, the United States of America. The strength of our movement is also in unity. United, we stand up for the values of democracy and human dignity. United, we believe that the wall of lawlessness and autocracy can be torn down. United, Belarusians expand our territory of freedom day by day, week by week, and month by month. I came to the United States with only one wish. I wish my country, my beloved Belarus, to finally break free. And I'm sure that it definitely will. And today, when you are looking into my eyes, just remember that you are looking into the eyes of every political prisoner, of every activist, of every volunteer, of every sportsman and a person of culture who every day fight courage in themselves and fight for democratic changes in our country. And the fact that you are all present here means that you feel the same pain as all those people feel. But you can look into these eyes with pride and dignity, because you are fighting together with us. Thank you, and long live Belarus.
Thank you. Long live Belarus. Żyje Belarus. So now we almost finished the official part of this launch. we'll have possibility for a couple of questions as well by the people from the press.
Thank you so much
Yes,
for getting.
please.
Hi. This is Oscar Budzinski from Polish Press Agency. First, one question for Ms. Tichanowska. Are you going to, okay, listen to this. You mentioned previously that you would hope that the U.S. would impose sectoral sanctions, maybe. And can you explain how that would help to bring about the change? And also, are you going to meet President Biden? It's not what signal would that send to Belarus, but also to other countries in the region, especially today with the announcement that we heard on this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we are calling for expanded sanctions, sectoral sanctions on Lukashenko's regime because I think that is one of the most powerful leverage to make him change behavior. We understand that sanctions is not a silver bullet, and but this will help us to release political prisoners and to make this regime understand that only dialogue with civil society will bring our country to democratic changes, that it will be the only way out of this humanitarian and economical crisis in Belarus. And secondly, I didn't meet with President Biden, but I met with on such a high level in the White House and State Department that what's important in my visit is the results. And I'm sure that after these visits, we will have a strong and practical answer from the United States of America. Thank you.
Hi, Jonathan Landay with Reuters. You and your movement have gone to great lengths to avoid casting the crisis and the situation in Belarus as being a national movement, but not a Russia versus the West and America movement. I'm wondering, given that you have now come here, whether or not you're going to be seen as giving a more of an appearance that this is in fact becoming, the situation in Belarus is in fact becoming one that pits Russia, another dispute between Russia and the West and the United States.
I'm here on behalf of Belarusian people. And here we are discussing not the relationship between Russia and Belarus, not relationship between the USA and Russia. We are discussing the situation in Belarus because we are a separate country, independent country, and what matters for me is our fight against the regime. Our fight is not geopolitical. Our fight is against lawlessness in our country, against human rights violation in Belarus. So we are discussing only Belarusian question here.
Who would like to ask a question? Please raise your hand.
The last question.
Sure. Jacob Halbert from the National Interest. Was there anything on this visit that surprised you?
I can't, I would say what surprised me is how many friends I met here. But maybe it's normal because everybody who is standing for values, democratic values, for human rights, they are all friends of Belarus. So actually, what surprised me, I even don't know.
Thank you very much. So I think with that answer, we will finish now formal meeting, and thank you very much, and thank you all the friends, members of the Congress, for being with us. Madam Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, Excellencies, and I thank the press as well being with us. And so thank you, and all the guests, invited guests, who also would like to invite for the second floor, to the second floor for the small receptions.